Morning students, welcome back to my channel Molecular Mysteries. Hope you are all doing fine. So in the thumbnail we have already seen that this class is all about the skeletal system in humans. So what is skeletal system? The skeletal system is nothing but the hard structures that support our body. It's called skeleton. This skeletal system, if it is present outside the body, it is called exoskeleton, naturally seen in the scales of fishes. And if the same thing is present inside the body, it is what you call the endoskeleton. Okay, in this class, let's talk about the types of joints present in our body, and these play a very important role for the examinations. So, before I enter into the topic, as you have already seen this, that the structure of joint. This is a structure of joint. So, generally, two ends of a bone meet forming a small membrane, or you can say it a small capsule called the synovial capsule. So, what is synovial capsule? So, the synovial capsule is the junction that is present between the ends of or the edges of two bones. Okay, this is called a joint. Before we talk about the synovial capsule and synovial membrane, let's talk about the structure of joint. So, joint is generally the thing that happens, that's the junction between the two ends of bones. So, this is how the structure of joint inside looks like. It is a longitudinal section of a joint, so that I can give you a brief idea about how the synovial capsule or how the synovial fluid look like. Okay, so let's talk about the synovial capsule. The whole joint that is seen in the picture is called the synovial joint. Okay, the two bones are separated from each other by a narrow space. The entire joint is enclosed by a joint capsule called the synovial capsule. This synovial capsule is formed by strong elastic ligaments, okay, which are continuous with the whole both bones. This synovial capsule is internally lined by the synovial membrane. Okay, this is internally lined by the synovial membrane. Okay, and this synovial capsule has got fluid in it called the synovial fluid. This synovial fluid acts as a lubricant and prevents the friction and allows the free joint or the free movement of your bones. Okay, this is called the synovial fluid looks like, and this is the synovial membrane. So this is how it looks like, the inside part of your joint. Okay, now in the next slide, let's talk about what the type of joints and how the joints have been differentiated into what are the kinds and all. Okay, so let's talk about the types of joints. So types of joints are mainly movable joints and immovable joints. These movable joints are again divided into perfect joints, imperfect joints, and these immovable joints are of three types: spindlelaces, sutures, and gomphoses. So now let's concentrate on the movable joints. These are divided into perfect joints and imperfect joints, and perfect and imperfect are mainly differentiated based on the synovial membrane and capsule, because imperfect joints lack the synovial capsule. That is how they are not perfectly moved in a particular angle. Okay, now let's talk about the perfect joints. See, the ball and socket joint is the best example for your perfect joint. In the same way, you have hinge joint, pivotal joint, saddle joint, and the gliding joint. Sorry, these are all coming under the perfect joints, because they can be moved in a perfect direction because of your synovial fluid present in it. They can be moved in all the directions. So now let's talk about the ball and socket joint. Okay, see, these questions can easily be asked either in a theoretical way or in an competitive exams also. Okay, so it is helpful for both the students. So now let's discuss about what are the things that are coming under the ball and socket joint. So you know what, this ball and socket joint is a type of joint where the one bone is like ball. The name itself says it's like a ball, and it easily fits into the socket, or you can say the concavity, that concave like a small hole, like, okay, it is easily fittable into that, and thus it is able to move in all the directions. Like, it can be moved in more than one plane. So if you can see that example here, both the shoulder joint and the hip joint would come example. See, this is how the shoulder joint looks like. It has got a some concavity, and joint between the upper arm bone and the glenoid cavity at the shoulder is called the shoulder joint. And the same way, the joint between the head of the femur, which is called a thigh bone, and the acetabulum of the hip. Hip is a fixed bone where the femur have a small ball like end at the end, so which is easily making it to move in all directions. So this is all coming about the ball and socket joint. Now let's talk about the hinge joint. Okay, this hinge joint is also called as ganglionoid joint. Okay, what is this hinge joint? In this type of joint you have got a protuberance, like it's small, I can say, one extra type of condyle, I can say. Okay, this cutting but a protuberance at the end of one bone, and that easily fits into the depression of the another bone. Okay, so this is how it looks like. The elbow joint is the best example, and also of course the knee joint, right? The both elbow joint and the knee joint would come under the hinge joint because they have got a protuberance in it. Okay, even the joint between the fingers and the toes would also come under this hinge joint. Okay, so for example, like if you take the elbow joint, you have radius ulna of the forearm and the humerus of your upper arm where the elbow is made. In the same way you have the knee point where there will be between the tibia and fibula of shank. So this is an example of elbow joint. Okay, okay, I told you, right? This is an example of fingers and toes where you have the joints of your digits. You can also say fingers and toes. They are also coming under the example of the hinge joint. For your understanding, I have just given you the video and the example. Okay. So now let's go for the other important perfectly mobile joint is a pivotal joint. So if you can see, notice it. So pivot, the name itself says that there is a pivot like structure or the peg like elevation, so that the other bone would easily rotate the whole directions. Like if you take an example of the vertebra of your spinal cord. Okay, see, this is the first vertebra and this is the second vertebra. The neck joint is the best example. You know what, in this pivotal joint the skull bone is present on the atlas part, and the axis part would have a small peg like elevation which makes the atlas skull to move rotating over the direction. That is how it is made in the pivotal joint. Okay, thus you can say the joint between the atlas of the first vertebrae and the axis of your second vertebrae is what you call the pivotal joint. Let's say the saddle joint. So let's see the other important perfectly mobile joint is the saddle joint. It is similar to the ball and socket joint, but it's poorly developed. You can say the example like between the carpal and metacarpal of thumb. So just remember, this could be asked in the examination. Okay, the joint between the carpal and metacarpal of the thumb is an example for the saddle joint. Let's see the gliding joint. So gliding joint, the name itself says one joint is being slided over by the other bone. Okay, this is also called as the arthodial joint. In this type of joint, the articulating bones can be sliding upon one another. So hence it is called the gliding joint, and you have the wrist bones and the ankle bones coming under this gliding joint. So till now we have completed the perfect joint. Now enter into the imperfectly mobile joints. So these doesn't have a synovial capsule. As I told you earlier, the synovial capsule and the synovial fluid is completely absent in imperfectly mobile joints, and that is why they have very little movement. And for this example, you can see through the pubic symphysis of your pelvic girdle. It's seen in the females. So this is especially seen in the females, and pubic symphysis of pelvic girdle that is seen in females is an example for the imperfectly mobile joints. Okay. So next go for the immobile joints. Till now we have completed the perfectly mobile joints, imperfectly mobile joints, and now let's enter into the immobile joints. So these immobile joints are the thing where the articulating movements, there are no movements at all. So if you can observe it, have you ever seen movement of your cranium bones? No, right? In the same way, you don't observe any jaw, maxilla and also premaxilla of jaw bones moving. So the both sutures and gum forces come under the example of the immobile joints. There the articulating bones does not allow any movements in the body. So these two come under the immobile joints. So hope I'm clear with the topic of skeletal system in humans. So please go through the things that I am attached in the description box for the further information. Okay, see, please be aware of the types of joints and they can be asked in any questions, any examinations. Okay, so hope you enjoyed the class very well thoroughly. So thank you and have a nice day.